Hey guys!
We're trying to find a good light. I don't know what happened. We're just driving all around, but it's Carfitable Talks time. Hopefully we can find a place where you can see us. How's everybody doing? Is that better? Is the light better there? Oh yeah.
It's better.
No, you can't see Claude or myself. That's not working.
Hey,
That's
Tan.
not working, Claude.
Happy anniversary, Tan and Maynard.
Roger Jameson. Wow, I haven't heard that name in a while. Hey Amber, how you doing?
Amber,
Hey,
what's
I'm
up?
Ronnie.
We're trying to get a good light here. I don't know what happened. Can you guys see us? It's like not very well though. Oh, what about that right there?
Just as bad.
Can you guys see us?
They can see you, Mom.
It's a mess.
They see you. You see you.
But
you
it's a glary.
It's okay.
No, that's not okay.
Oh, that would have been perfect if you stayed.
I couldn't be there. Stay.
Who's that way, man?
Excuse me?
Oh,
He's coming in.
Yes. Well, it looks like he's going to be on very soon. The one and only, the great, fantastic actor. There he is, Malcolm!
How are you doing?
Gosh.
What's up, man? How you doing?
We're trying to get some good light. We're looking like ghosts. Yeah, you look great. We look like, oh my gosh. I am so embarrassed about that.
Embarrassed about what?
We were talking about what a wonderful actor and everything you were, and then we said you could just recognize you. You might not know your name. We're sorry about that, but you are very, very.
Oh, don't be so. I think that's funny. I think that is absolutely true. I think there's a lot of people that definitely know my face more than they know my name.
Well, before I met you and you became kind of a friend of the family, I knew you and was a fan, but the name Malcolm Barrett, I couldn't quite get it, but I definitely knew who you were because I'm a fan.
I appreciate that. Well, it's funny. I actually on a lot of my social media handles, I'm known as Verbal the Rapper. So what's funny is I'll talk to people about random stuff like online, and then somebody will be like, "Oh, is that you?" They won't know it's the same person because I don't always use my real name when I'm online or something.
Okay, but I know you from your great work, especially in television. But let's start from the very beginning for a minute. So you started in Brooklyn. You were born in Brooklyn, Bedford-Stuyvesant, and all that kind of thing. And you went to high school there and all that. But I want to ask you this question.
Sure.
My mom keeps telling me not to say I want to ask you a question, so I have to stop.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, you just got to jump into the question. You just got to
jump into it. Yeah, you just got to dive in and say it.
Exactly.
So you were, I've wondered this about you even before I knew who you were. You have somehow, after being from Brooklyn with Biggie and all these other kind of rappers, and you were rapping, how did you end up being this black brother that's a nerd? You're totally opposite of what Hollywood Shuffle. Do you remember Hollywood Shuffle, the movie?
I do. Hollywood Shuffle was one of my first favorite movies. Robert Townsend, Keaton Ivory Wayans, yeah. Yeah,
but you were the one somehow who ended up doing the total opposite. Somehow you were able not to be, hey, I'm going to shoot you and all this kind of stuff. You ended up being that guy that we still can't find the light.
It's amazing. You guys have Godlight on right now.
Godlight, yeah, too much Godlight. But how did you end up not being the stereotypical guy? You're really revolutionary in that. You're pioneering the smart black guy kind of a thing. How did that happen?
Well, I will tell you, the bar is low, right? Like the bar is low in terms of the expectations of what they expected from people from Brooklyn, right? Like, because the majority of what we had seen up until really super recently is depictions of, I'm from Bed-Stuy. I'm from the place where the motto is do or die, right?
Okay.
So there's definitely, like, I'm from the hood, right? That's the neighborhood. But I'm also from a place where, you know, I was not a lone person. I went to a bunch of different schools that were like specialized school for smart kids from Brooklyn. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it wasn't that foreign to me. Like definitely the neighborhood things and the culture of, you know, there being, you know, poverty or people struggling or working class and all that sorts of things there. I've been jumped before, you know, I've been in fights. Yeah, I mean, all sorts of stuff. But the idea of being like a smart black guy wasn't that crazy to me because I went to schools like PS11 and 113, which were made for Brooklyn black smart kids. I was in the Summit program at one point. I was in Science Skills Center. I was a tutor at Harlem Overheard with Sean Dove, which was like a youth-run newspaper. So for me, I had tons of examples of smart black men in my community and smart black kids and peers. So for me, once I transitioned into acting, it was about showing that side of the environment that I was from, you know, because of course there's all these negative things that we've seen, but for me, it was about showing that, yeah, I am a smart black man. My first two roles were a drug dealer and a basketball player. You know, those were
okay. So you
so yeah, so it's a there. I mean, when you break it down, I mean, I feel as though I imbued them with a certain amount of three-dimensionality. But when we talk about the biggest complaints in terms of depictions of black people on television and in media, it's the thing we see the most are drug dealers and basketball players. So when I was coming up, I was very conscious of the fact that I wanted to show more, that I wanted to show that we are not a monolith and that there are a multitude of things that we are. So that's why you see me playing so many scientists, aside from the fact that I was on track to be a scientist. I was on track to be a biologist and the things of that nature. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't.
At NYU?
No, by NYU, I'd become, I'd started teaching theater, but I went to high school at Stuyvesant, which was the #1 math and science high school in the country.
Wow.
And during junior high, I took the high school regents when I was in junior high. Like I took the math and science high school regents, either in junior high or 6th grade, something like that. And then 7th and 8th grade.
The more I'm impressed.
I know, because you know what you remind me of?
Serious.
I mean, I hope you don't take this as a put down. But you are that black guy who's like maybe in the roles you depict that I know you from, that maybe you're the only black guy in that group of like a group of white nerds or white Asian nerds. You're this guy that we all know in real life, but you don't see that guy as that guy. And so it's really pretty interesting and exciting that you're able to did you purposely pick that, or because it seems like maybe you would have been without jobs? How did they find out that you were that guy?
Yes, everything I do is on purpose. My entire career is on purpose. I said no a lot. I mean, there's yeah, I mean, look, my first two roles were a basketball player, you know what I mean? And you know, probably the first time I played a drug dealer, if not the only time on television, was on The Sopranos, right? So
on The Sopranos, okay.
Yeah, so for a certain amount, it was an opportunity for a certain extent, you know?
Yeah.
But for me, I've always just been very purposeful about the roles I've taken and very smart about it. I mean, probably my first big Hollywood role where I was a regular was on a show called Louis with Luis Guzman. It took place in Spanish Harlem.
Yeah.
And so that one was interesting because I basically just played a neighborhood dude, right? Like, you know, but it was also a very interesting thing because it was a very whitewashed show, you know what I mean? It takes place in Spanish Harlem, but two of the leads are white, you know, and the main lead is Luis Guzman, who to this day I'm very friends with. He's like my uncle to this day.
Wow.
But you know, it's a mix between opportunity and purpose. Like it is on purpose that I play, you know, intelligent people, and probably because of my background. I have a background in science, so you know I can say words like endoplasmic reticulum pretty easily, and organelles, and you know, mitochondria and things like that.
This cadence in what you do, you kind of talk like you're rapping sometimes in a way. It's kind of this sing-song musical thing that you do that as soon as that happens, I mean, I can be in the kitchen or something, but I'll know, oh, that's that guy. I only know that guy that I really like. He's very cool. Malcolm, of course. Fabulous Malcolm. And, oh, Malcolm, I got to tell you, we saw something the other day. Of course, you've got some, I guess, podcasts or IG live casts yourself called, what is it? This is Malcolm with Malcolm live.
Yeah, going live with Malcolm with Malcolm.
Going live with Malcolm with Malcolm. We saw one with you with this mask on.
Yes.
Now it's the mask we sent you for Claude's birthday party.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
That was so good and that was so funny.
Perfect.
It's just hilarious. But you play this very serious, tongue-in-cheek kind of, I don't know, you're just so like nobody else, and I think that's why I enjoy it so much. And of course, what I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, that made you very famous is Timeless. That Timeless is everything, because it brought out all kinds of characters we haven't seen on the screen, giving it with some history. And I heard that's what you like, a little history and a little comic book and all that.
That was interesting. Yeah, that one was.
Yeah, tell us about that time as, what is it, Rufus?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So I played Rufus on Timeless, and you know, I've been probably that Louis job I got in 2003, right? So I've probably been professionally on television relatively consistently since 2003. But Timeless, so here's the thing about fame. Fame is really weird because it works in waves, right? So it's like, oh, I guess I'm famous this week. Like
This week,
you know what I mean? Like, I have no idea. So Timeless was really interesting because probably the closest I got to that sort of fandom, and for any of your folks that don't know Timeless was a show about a team of people that invented time travel, and then a terrorist hijacked the time machine, and so they brought me, who was part of inventing the machine, a historian and a military officer, to chase him back in time as he tried to ruin things for America.
Right.
And so I played Rufus, the guy.
I guess we'll get it back on in a minute. I don't know what happened there, but he did play Rufus. Oh, there you are. You're back.
Okay.
I'm still here.
Okay. You kind of froze there for a minute.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so I played one of the, you know, I played the super smart guy in that show, and so it was a really interesting thing to do, because, you know, it was awesome because we told stories about history, and as the show went on, we tell stories about lesser known people in history, which usually wound up being women and people of color, women of color. So it was and because my character was so tongue-in-cheek and humorous, I got to express a bunch of things about history, about being Black in America, about being Black in America through time, and about being a nerd and someone who was vulnerable and all these things. I got to be that on that show. So that
loved it. I loved it.
Oh, good. Yeah, that was.
I think representative of that is when you were in jail talking to.
Yeah.
What about? Who are you?
You don't know the future, basically.
But I win, you lose, kind of thing. I loved it.
I would watch. I pause.
Yeah, just a little bit of a pause.
I want to watch a show. I want to watch a show where it's just you guys reenacting scenes from my career. I just.
Really? That might be something.
We fall out on the floor. We run like something like when I say to you guys, like, yes.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
That's awesome. I love your like sort of quiet producer in the back here happening right now.
Johnny, this is our producer for Car Fittable Talks, and because we can't even get on, I can't get on IG Live by myself. I can't.
No,
So I don't know. It doesn't work.
no, it's perfect. When I put this on my Instagram, I was like, "Hide your aunties. It's going down right now."
That's right. That's right. We're dangerous. Speaking of which, my brother, I think you need to do a DNA test.
Why is that?
Because especially when you were younger, you look like Dave Chappelle. I mean, you've grown into your own face now, but man, when you were young, when you were real super thin, you were skinny like you hadn't eaten, like you were a working actor.
What is going on?
That child didn't eat.
What's going on?
Oh, I mean, are you related to him or any way? Or it's just you're from the same tribe? You know?
No, I'm guessing we're from the same tribe. I would guess our ancestors are from the same countries in Africa or somewhere.
Probably so.
Guyana or something. I don't know. I'm sure there are people who are closer to our ancestors that know a little bit. If I can tell. I had a whole thing. Speaking of my show, I had Lamorne Morris on it, who guys know from New Girl and from tons of other stuff, Woke and things like that. So we used to get confused for another. So I think we're going to start a society. It's going to be a show. It's just going to be me, Lamorne, Dave Chappelle, and maybe we'll get Mos Def in there. And it's just going to be us and our show.
I'm from the
we'll all have our show together. You know what I mean?
I mean, you really could because, it's there.
No, I was just saying, have you ever done DNA?
Yeah, that's what
You know I don't trust the government with my DNA. Don't trust these folks.
I want to be clear about that. Too much information.
Well, I mean, that gets us into a whole other thing about you. You're this. Like I said, I'm really a fan. And Claude and I are sci-fi fans too. So now,
completely.
You did Preacher, honey. I couldn't understand that one. I had to let that one go.
Preacher, you were so good in Preacher.
Yeah. I tried. I didn't know what was going on.
Oh, I gotta show you. Hold on.
The neighborhood, you gonna put your white coat on?
Hold on. I don't have that, but so what's cool is Preacher was a lot of fun, right? My mom would try and tell folks about it, and it's super weird because you know my mom's from the church, and I'm like, Mom, there's no people don't want to this isn't a church announcement.
It ain't what you think. It is not what you think.
I still don't know what that one was.
Oh. Well,
that's the only one I couldn't follow you with, brother.
It's a graphic novel. It's a graphic novel.
Yeah, it's a graphic novel, comic book. Now, here's the weird thing about doing this stuff is that, you know, you talk about Timeless, how it made me more famous. My audiences suddenly change, right? Like I don't necessarily always have control over who watches what I do, right? So it's very interesting because up until Timeless, I felt like I had done really sort of edgy work in some cases, and Timeless was
your work is edgy,
and Timeless became a thing that became for families. You know what I mean? It was the first thing I'd ever done where whole families were watching it, and white families. Like all of a sudden I had huge white fan base, like white family fan base that I never had before. You know what I mean? Because I'm also used to, like, I'll go to Brooklyn and, you know, if I roll with an old buddy of mine, I go to Brooklyn, some random black dude be like, all right, man, here you go, and give me that. And somebody like, you know him? I'm like, I have no idea who that is. I don't know. That's, you know. So that's what was interesting about Preacher, because that was more my type of humor. And then by then I built there's this section of fan base that's like just families and stuff like that. And then they come to Preacher, they're like, what the hell is this? So
we don't know what that was. We don't know what that was. That was
so I know. So Well, so here's the cool thing about doing that, right? Because of all these shows, I get to do all these Comic-Cons, or I used to before the pandemic, right? So I would get these pieces of art, right? You see, I have all these art.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, so I get all these things, but one of the things from this artist, Matt Harding, I met him through the internet, and I asked him to paint a picture of me as Preacher, as my character from Preacher, F.J. Hoover, after he became a vampire, and this is what he made for me.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Right? Little drops of blood.
Oh, that's so good.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And now, I mean, like I said, with Preacher, that was a bit much for me. But when I started listening to your other art forms, I mean, you really are a true artiste. You're a real thespian. You're the real deal, doing all that kind of stuff. And I saw one of your plays too, which was incredible.
Yeah.
Was that through Ammo? What was that play? You went into a psychedelic.
They're called Head Job.
Head job.
Yeah, so I wrote a play called Brain Problems that I did with my theater company.
Head Job.
Head Job is an excellent alternate title for it. If it doesn't go as is, I'm going with Head Job. That's excellent.
That's what I remember. It's a great, no, I love the play. No, the play, I don't know, I'm not as expressive as Vicki, but I really love the play. I mean, the whole, you know, how you wrote and how you dealt with somebody who has certain issues where they're hallucinating and just going through a lot of different things, and still with friends that really want support and help. And how do you process that and how you keep that going? It was really great.
Oh, I appreciate that.
So tell us more about the theater, and I know you have I don't know if it's a community theater, if that's the right way to put it, Ammo, improv situation, and
I think Emma's
Sure.
Ammo's a nickname for it.
Yeah, so the official name of it is the Ammunition Theater Company, and we call it Ammo for short. And it continues a tradition of I like to work within the community. You know, I learned that from my mom. I used to do the soup kitchen. I grew up in church. So the Ammunition Theater is a nonprofit theater company. And what that means is essentially we put on plays. We don't necessarily get paid. It's not to make a huge amount of money. It's all of our money that we make from our plays goes right back to creating more plays. And we do, and it goes to paying the actors in it, and it goes to paying the writers and the directors and the production. So that's a nonprofit theater company, and that's what I do. It's the second one that I've ever had. And all of my companies, I'm the artistic director, one of three. It's the second time I've been the artistic director of a nonprofit theater company. And my goal each time is to give voices to minorities, right? There's like really nice ways and whatever politically correct ways to say it, but really it's so I can give voices to colored people, to Mexicans, to Black women, to people with of different walks of life, to people underrepresented, for the people who identify as she and he and they, and so that's always been the goal of any part of theater companies that I've been a part of, and that's the same here. And so I finally did Brain Problems there, which was a play that I wrote, which was awesome. We're probably 5 years in. We have our next big show we have a festival called Together LA, the Together LA Festival.
When is that?
When is that going to, well, given the COVID.
Yeah, well, and then that's the thing, we've adapted, so all of our shows are on Zoom now. Like all of our shows are in some version of social media, YouTube, something like that. So October 1st to October 17th is a Together LA Festival. So what happened was a bunch of artistic directors, there's probably about 30 plus of us so far, got together to meet once a week after we went on lockdown, because we realized we wouldn't be able to put on theater the same way. So as a result of this, we're putting on this festival, which we had hoped things would pass by then, but it hadn't. So now we're doing this via Twitch, right? And so there's over 30 theaters that are represented. Ours will be one of them. We are fortunate that our theater company is actually opening up the festival. Our play is,
okay, cool.
Yeah, our play is the very first night, I think 7 p.m., October 1st. You can go to my Instagram to find it, or you can go to Admiral Theater to find it, and get your tickets. But we open the play, and I'm actually in it, and it's a play from Bernardo Cubría, who's a Mexican playwright, who was a former artistic director for us. And it's called The Token, and it's basically yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, well, basically when it's basically us addressing liberalism, white liberalism in theater. Yeah, I mean, essentially.
That's
yeah, well, essentially what happened is, theater is considered this very liberal place, but at the same time, it's very much white dominated. Like, the reason I became an artistic director, like, theater is supposed to be this bastion of equality, but the reason I became an artistic director for a nonprofit theater company is because there weren't enough plays being done by people of color. There weren't enough theater companies being run by people of color, by women of color, by any of these people. So after George Floyd happened, there was this reaction in theater, which was like, hey, we're all going to get together. And then there was this letter by the BIPOC, what people are calling the BIPOC community, which is Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I just say colored folk because I'm old school and I can say that.
You're not that old. You're not that
old. But yeah, there was a reaction in theater and it was just this thing of like, all of a sudden, all these white folks who have had traditions and bastions of doing nothing but white theater going, we're here with you, and we'll black out our squares, and we're doing all of this. And at the same time, I was going, well, where were you before this? You've been making your money, you've been surviving, you've been serving that one audience your entire time. So let's not pretend that that's not what you're doing and how you're surviving and how you're thriving. And so that's something that particular play addresses. The Token.
Yeah. I mean, you've been an activist really in this way. This is why we want everybody to know and love you as much as we do. I mean, you definitely have serious fans, but we hope that, our kind of community too will be there. I do wonder this one thing. Your mom is faith-based, like you said. How does she feel about all this different kind of stuff that you're doing? Some of it is extremely edgy, and out there. How does she? What does she feel about it? She's a poet too. I heard she writes poetry and all that. So how's she?
Yeah, a majority of my creative endeavors have been inspired by my mother and have been fostered by my mother. My mother has been writing poetry since I was a child. That's part of where I got, I became, you talk about the rhythmic way in which I speak, I became a Nuyorican poet. So I literally.
What is that you're saying? Are you saying niggerican? What is this word? I've been hearing this word.
Just a right pass on that one. Right up in there. You just went
okay.
What are you saying?
Okay. So this is a very New York thing, right? So, so Nuyorican means New York Puerto Rican.
I thought you were saying niggerican.
No. But I'm sure there's a bunch of folks. I'm sure there's a bunch of folks in Brooklyn that say that too.
Thank you, Stacy. Stacy had to write it out.
Okay. Stacy wrote it out. Stacy Morgan, who's a great playwright and director. So, okay, explain. Nuyorican.
So there's a famous cafe in Manhattan and 3rd Street on the Lower East Side, called Nuyorican Poetry Cafe. And Miguel Pinheiro was there, Slam. There's a whole movie made about it. Saul Williams comes from out of there.
School us.
Yeah, so there's a history of New York Puerto Rican that come out of that area. So I was part of that. I was a Nuyorican poet in 2001, and I've done poetry since then. My mom is very encouraging because she knows the difference between me being whatever character I am on television and me being respectful in real life. Do you know what I mean? There's a whole lot of people, I'm sure, that hate Preacher, but have never worked in a soup kitchen, that that are not using their privilege to help others. You know what I mean? But they got a whole lot to say about, you know, me cursing on a TV show or something like that. So my mom has always recognized that difference, but my mom is also the same person that didn't let me say funk growing up because it sounded too much like fuck.
Well, you've been saying it now. That's
I thought I said.
No, you've been great on the show. You've been great, you guys, and he is such a sweetheart. He said he was going to watch his potty mouth, and we appreciate that too. And you've been doing a great job.
I'm trying. You've seen my show. I'm a lot wilder.
Oh yeah. You are all of you in all of its magnificence and all of its verbal expression.
Exactly.
Definitely. But I mean, out of all that too, I think that you have been just this silent killer. You've been out there from 9/11 to, I heard you did some marches recently, protests rather. What was that like, this recent protest? I know you were in Santa Monica, I think it is, and all of that. And I want people to know this about you. You have a lot of depth. And I'd like you to talk about that and how you pioneered in that way too, with letters and all of that about what's going on right now and with Blacks, BLM and all of that. Tell us a little bit more about that side of it.
Sure. So, you know, another thing I got from my mom was protesting. You know, I got, you know, it's interesting. I went to a Black elementary school where, you know, and I really value that education because I would see Black historical figures on the walls. You know, when Nelson Mandela was freed and came through New York, I remember being a kid with my classmates sitting on the streets, you know, the parade as we celebrated that. So it's not completely new to my life. And like you said, when 9/11 and the war was happening and we were at the United Nations and I got detained during then. And so this is not a new world to me. And so, you know, Black Lives Matter has been something that I haven't been a part of the official organization in any way, shape, or form. But I have always been a part of the sentiment that Black Lives.
Right. Same here. No, we support what they're.
Yeah, I've you know, I've always been a part of the sentiment that our lives matter and are important and should be valued. And so when the George Floyd thing happened, I was out there, and I've been to marches before there, but when that happened, it was a struggling moment, and you know, I joined the marches and the protests, and there's been a number of them in LA, because I was going insane sitting at home. I couldn't sit. Do you know? There's a lot of people that go, you know, you need to stay out of it, or you know, there's people who want to do this. It's not that I wanted to fight. I don't want to fight for equality. I have to. Do you know what I mean? Or feel compelled to. Like I don't want to be screaming about how we need to charge police for killing people with impunity. I don't want to have to talk about accountability, but I have to for survival, for my survival, for your survival, for the survival of fellow Americans' lives. And so that's what sparked it, you know what I mean? And it's very interesting seeing how it's played out on the ground versus how it's played out on social media. You know, seeing people talk about who's escalating what. I've seen the cops escalate. I've seen, you know, I'm in there, you know, for folks that don't know, the way that I know you is through my girlfriend Amber. She's you guys' cousins. And so we were out there marching, and we were there when the police boxed us in and then started.
Oh, you were there?
They were there.
Yeah, we were there where they suddenly started firing gas and things like that. Amber got hit in the back with a gas grenade.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you feel at that moment when is it panic? Is it
It's I think and she'll talk about this. There was a sort of leaving my body with the experience of it all in terms of, I think all the fears that you have about what the police feel about you or what power you have in any given situation, if you're put in this situation, become very real. Like, and so you kind of either confront that or you run away, and it's that sort of thing. Like, we were there being boxed in, you know, being shot at without having weapons of anything kind, and not us personally with bullets, but more with gas and things like that. And so,
my gosh, I didn't know all that was going on.
This was over on
yeah. I probably haven't talked about it much. But subsequently, you know, and that was the other thing that was different, is that we started seeing white people in front of us, which I hadn't seen, and things calmed down once the police allowed it to calm down, to be honest.
Exactly.
Once, you know, they had the Coast Guards or whoever was there, they had military, and they were freaking chilling. Like, when we were a couple days in or weeks in, they were just chilling, you know. And it was very interesting because the police changed tactics, and it's very clear that that came from above. And that happened differently in different cities in different states, right? There were some cities that where the police became more aggressive, and there's some places where it became less aggressive. So in LA, when the marches and the protests first started, things were hectic because the police were shooting us with tear gas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A couple weeks later, things got less hectic because when there would be confrontations, the police just walked away or drove away. Like, they literally changed their tactics. So the narrative changed, the story changed.
Right.
Like, so all of a sudden it wasn't stories of riots. And keep in mind, when the police shoot at us with tear gas, they call it riots.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
You guys are rioting.
They don't call it police shooting at us with tear gas. They call it riots. So then all of a sudden things got peaceful. The people haven't changed. The orders to the police changed.
The police.
So
I know we couldn't because we wanted to go out, so we ended up just going out in our car and putting our signs in the window.
Look, I mean,
I commend you, bro, for, you know, being out there, boots on the ground, so to speak. But we were in our car with our signs.
Look, I get it. You got to protect yourself. We're still in COVID. I mean, it wasn't the most genius thing in the world.
That's the other part,
It wasn't the most genius thing in the world to do, to be honest. What I do say is that a majority of the people I was around for that wore masks. I probably saw more people wearing masks at those protests than I've seen wear masks at every restaurant I've passed in Santa Monica and Malibu.
But did you ever think, oh my gosh, I'm Malcolm Barrett. What if I get into a situation, my face is known? Is there going to be extra repercussion? Did anything like that cross your mind? I mean,
Vicki, I've done less respectable stuff while I've had the height of fame that I have now. This will be okay.
This is child's play. Okay.
This will be okay.
I have a question with everything happening this week, and this is something that's a little bit more current with Breonna Taylor and also with Meg the Stallion. I'm sure you know about the diss record that was put out last night. What are your thoughts about how Black women are being treated this week, especially being in a situation where Amber's hit by tear gas, and then seeing how Breonna Taylor's shooting was
and Amber's a friend of all of ours. Is our cousin.
He explained that. But also to just see that in the midst of all this, then you have Tory Lanez coming out with this, basically profiting off of shooting Meg. What are your thoughts with all that's happening this week in that respect?
I will tell you, I'll rephrase something that Malcolm X said, which is the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. I'll reshape a quote from my namesake. It's rough, man. I mean, even when you talk about police brutality towards Black people, and keep in mind, police brutality happens across all walks of life for all ethnicities, but disproportionately to Black people. And underrepresented in that is how often it happens to Black women as well. From Sandra Bland to people knocking on doors to anything. So that's nothing new. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I think for a lot of us, we know this world and it's not surprising to us. And so it's very frustrating to see the waves of knowledge to other people in America, because it's not new for us. And by the time they figure out what's happening and get excited, we've already become accustomed and frustrated and tired. Exhausted. We're tired.
This week I'm exhausted.
We're all tired because we all actually have real jobs too. Do you know what I mean? So to deal with this on top of that is frustrating. I don't want to disrespect little people, but Tory Lanez. Tory Lanez. I mean, it's a very. That's the guy that shot her in the foot. Yeah, that's a little bit of that shot her in the foot. I mean, I guess my response to that is listen to WAP. I guess that's my response. You know, I do not like that. It's to listen to Megan Thee Stallion over. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. It's a very frustrating thing to feel that you are not protected by an agency that is supposedly there to protect you.
Exactly.
Because where do you go from there? We can handle as a society bad actors as civilians, but we can't handle as a society bad actors from the people who are paid to protect us.
Yeah.
And that's the most frustrating thing. And so, you know, it's hard to combat, you know, on a national level. And so that's why I try and do these things like these non-for-profit things that are to give voices to women. Our writers workshop that we have is all women this year by sheer coincidence, not because we're shooting for it, but because that's built in our DNA of what we're trying to do, of the voices we're trying to support. And so that's all I can do. I mean, it's, you know, never underestimate the pettiness of an ignorant Negro man to throw a Black woman under the bus when they get a chance. I mean, it's disappointing to see in Tory Lanez. It's disappointing to see in Killer Mike, who recently had a meeting with that mayor who stole the election from Stacey Abrams.
I didn't know that.
It's very frustrating when men put the masculinity over the equality of their women, of the women here, where they feel it's tantamount. And I think it's a thing where, because we're in danger, we circle the wagons when we get criticized, right? Yeah. So you know, the same way why it's tough to criticize our Black heroes, because we know, you know, other folks have been waiting to denigrate them and to say all this stuff. How, you know, it's hard to criticize Obama because, you know, there's a whole bunch of racist people that are waiting to go like, yeah, exactly. So I think for a lot of folks like a Tory or whoever, they circle the wagons. You know, they sometimes circle the wagons when it comes to Black folks, and then when it comes between Black women and Black men, they circle the wagons there because they're like, I'm in such danger as a Black man.
But you know, we should call wrong, and I think that's, you know, incumbent upon us Black men to do that. But I agree with you. Sometimes you're reluctant, like, you know, call out Obama or Martin Luther King because they wanted to cut them down anyway. Yeah. But sometimes when somebody, something like in this particular case, we need to say, hey man, you wrong.
You got.
I'm going to change the subject a little bit.
Go for it. It's your show.
Bring it down a notch.
I want to talk about some Black heroes.
Sure.
Especially in hoodies.
Because heroes in hoodies. That's a song of Malcolm's. But Malcolm, I don't know if you knew Chadwick Boseman, but I know that you're a big Comic-Con fan and sci-fi person, and we are too. What, did you know Chadwick?
I did know Chadwick. Yeah. Professionally, yes.
So that
yeah.
was great.
No, it's okay. I didn't know him personally enough that I'm gonna lose my crap right now. But I did know him enough to respect his work and the craft and to see what he did, and it was really excuse me, I have all this equipment happening here, but
that's all right. We're just talking.
It was
got some light across our face, so.
So, it was a really amazing thing. I mean, probably the thing that people are most going to associate him with is Black Panther.
Right.
And it makes sense. There had never been a movie of that scale with such that amount of Black contributors behind the camera and in front. When you look at some of the other great Black movies, you look at something like, from Boys in the Hood to Amistad, it's like Boys in the Hood doesn't have the budget, and Amistad was Steven Spielberg. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was
right.
To have this hero, unabashedly, not an anti-hero, not flawed, but to have this hero, it's unfortunate that it is such a once in a lifetime thing, right?
Well, that's what I want to ask you. Being a comic person, what do you think should happen next? I mean,
I tell you this.
Hero like that. I think Zuri should take over.
Killmonger.
What do you think from a comic book and us as Black people needing a hero? What do you think should happen?
We need a hoodified hero.
So here's the thing, right? I have all these Black nerd friends of mine, and some are in the comic industry, and they have a bunch of different ideas. I think, there's a thing where we want to be respectful. I think folks want to be respectful of Chadwick. And then there's this other thing of like, heroes are larger than life. They're this idea. And we've changed heroes 1,000,001 times, and that's the thing that's important. So I actually think the idea of Black Panther should continue, and I think there is 1,000,000 ways to go about it. I don't think there's any one way. I think it would be cool to have someone else fill that shoes, because it means so much to Black culture. But and
it happened in the comics.
Yeah, and it also happens in the comics, right? I think we're very precious about it because we have so few, But I also love the idea of Shuri. Same thing happened in the comics of passing the mantle to Shuri. I think we've built a lot of that. I think there's a world where we pass it to Shuri, and then at some point we get a new Black Panther, because that's also the thing about Black Panther, is that it's a mantle you wear. It's not one individual. It is
right. A lot of people who aren't familiar with all that think it has to be Chadwick. What was the name of his character again? T'Challa.
Yeah.
Comic. But he picked it up from his father, and then it moves on.
Yeah.
So you're right. It's a mantle that's passed on. And,
so it's hard, and it's hard. I know people take it sensitive, because I know I was wondering that, and people are like, it's too soon. And so I think people understand that there's a love for Chadwick that can't be replaced, and there's a love for us seeing our heroes live eternally.
Yeah. And you go to Comic-Con. I just can't even figure out how to go. I mean, it's so hard to get in there. I mean, are there a lot of Black people that go to Comic-Con?
Yeah, I go. My last.
I want to go. No, it takes like 5 minutes in The Big Bang Theory. They call up, and in 5 seconds, it's full.
It's hard to get tickets because
it's incredibly hard to get tickets. There's definitely a huge amount of Black people. Like, okay, so I'm part of this thing called a Blurred group, and the whole thing about that is Black nerds, right? That's what Blurred means, Black nerds. And so honestly, one of the reasons why I've taken the career path I've taken is for folks like you and folks like us to see that, like, yeah, there's huge Black comic community. There's, I mean, the writers of that, Reginald Hudlin, for one, of Black Panther, who also did House Party, by the way, with Kid and Play. Yeah. Oh yeah. So here's a really cool story is that Reginald Hudlin directed an episode of Better Off Ted. And so, yeah. And so when I found out who he was, I had this pin made that said, property of T'Challa. And I gave it to Reggie. I had this whole thing made for him because I was like just a huge fan. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
Right,
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
You're doing so much great stuff. I'm wondering two things. I know for the future, you've got this big thing coming up with National Geographic, I guess it is, the show Aretha with Cynthia Erivo. I mean, that's so major. When is that happening? When is that coming?
No, I'm just saying he's playing Aretha's husband, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I played Ted White, who was her first husband and the producer for a couple of her songs, a number of songs, a co-writer. It's not clear how much what he did and all of it, but yeah, he was definitely a producer and co-writer with her on a couple of things. It's hard to tell when it's coming out because it was going to be ready for this Emmy season. But then COVID hit. So actually I'm flying back in about 3 weeks or something like that to do reshoots on it. And it's a series, so they actually have 2 more episodes they have to finish. Yeah. So
how many episodes is it?
I think it's 8. I think it's about 8 episodes. Yeah.
We're all gonna be watching that for sure.
So yeah, there's a bunch of big. So Patrice Covington is in here right now, you guys. She plays Aretha's sister. She's in here. She's Patrice. Speaking of amazing singers, Patrice Covington is one of the most amazing singers, one of the most amazing actors, and just a joy. And when you see her in this movie, I don't know how much you've seen of her before now, because I think this may be her first series. And she's heavy in theater, but she's one of the greatest singers, one of the greatest performers, and is just electric on screen. I can't wait for you to see her.
Yeah, we're really excited to see that. Of course, Cynthia Erivo. I mean, come on. What a voice there.
Yeah, we've got Cynthia's one of the most amazing singers I've ever seen live, period. Just naturally as a voice. Beast. She's a beast. And we're excited. We got a great group of people. It's her first. Thank you. It is her first show. We got and we pulled out all the stops on this show. We got Marquis Richardson, who's in Antebellum right now. Who else? It's been so long since I've done this. David Cross. We got Pauletta Washington.
Really?
Yeah, we got Miss Pauletta. We got Miss Pauletta. Hide your auntie.
Yes, Pauletta. Wow.
Yeah, we got a really great Courtney B. Vance is in here.
Of course.
Yeah. So we have an amazing group of people. Anthony Hemingway, who has I think a couple Emmys for directing at this point. Yeah, I mean, there's so many people involved. Kimberly, Heber, Rebecca, everybody, so much.
All your folks. Well, we're getting towards the end. If we fall off, you guys, we'll pick back up real quick if we need to say a few things. But
but we do want to do this one song.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. Is he keeps talking about it, Claude, heroes in what is it? Heroes in hoodies?
Hero in a hoodie.
Hero in a hoodie.
You're talking about one hero, not a hero.
And this is really a profound song. I think we're going to have to put it on our playlist on Vicki Mack's Wax Tracks in the Movement. So if we do fall off, we'll pop right back on. But let's hear this. Are we ready for the song, Shoni?
No,
we're not quite ready for it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this song?
Sure. So, for those who don't know, I rap a lot, and I fortunately am able to, like, I usually do a song in coordination with whatever TV show I'm on sometimes. So this was I did a song called Revenge of the Nerds that I played during Better Off Ted, that plays in the finale of Better Off Ted. But this song was a sort of cover of Jaden Smith's song Icon.
Icon, yes.
Yeah. And so I went to the producers of Timeless, and it was, you know, I have my own band, my group Verbal and Icarus, with my boy Brandon Scott. And so we have been doing a series of videos. We have a new album called Funhouse, and we finally did some videos. And then I was just in this mood, and I went to the Timeless producers. I said, look, give me 1 hour. I'll shoot this music video. I've had this song stuck in my head. And so we actually got canceled. I had thought of the song before we got canceled. Then we got canceled, and then we got the movie, and then we wound up shooting the movie. So when the movie came back on my day off, I came, and during a lunch break, probably a day or two before, I finished writing the song, and then during the lunch break, I directed the video.
I love this version.
And so it's like probably one of the fastest video shoots ever. Most expensive, fastest video shoots ever. It was because we could only do 2 or 3 takes because it was during a lunch break. I pulled in one of the camera guys. The lighting guys were on lunch break. They just turned it up. And so this was the song I wrote, and it's called Hero in a Hoodie. And it encompasses basically, I covered 2 seasons of the show in this song.
Okay, here we go.
I'm just a hero in a hoodie, trying to fight crime through time with goodies. Made a speech about Black Michaels. Got a time machine, call it a lifeboat. Jumping through time, it's just me and my peeps. You took a step, that's a good quantum leap. I'm getting paper like I'm William Hurst. Saving the world, renting houses the worst. I'm just a hero in a hoodie. 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 Oh, no, we can get popped on anything. Phone, show, severe and shotgun, Hemingway, soldier, historian, went back to the future, no DeLorean. Angel Christopher with the book of babies here. Mason jump, talking like a Shakespeare. All these clock watchers, they will not give up. Banners and helicopters with the never know how things will be ended up. When your back is to the wall, you gotta flint it up. I'm just a shot type of guy. Got killed by Emma, she is so real. Can tell if I'm dead or alive.
Now you know just how the show feel.
I'm just a hero in a hoodie. 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 Trying to fight crime through time with goodies. Cowboy, bass, freestyles, no Woody. Yeah, could change the world, but shitty. Grew up thinking I was not a leader.
Not Lima.
I cannot be black. Even ended up in Germany, did not see that. I'm just a hero in a hoodie. Trying to fight crime through time with goodies. Made a speech about Black Michaels. Got a time machine, call it a lifeboat. I'm getting paper like I'm William Hurst. Saving the world, renting houses the worst. Jumping through time, it's just me and my peeps. You took a step, I took a quantum leap. You took a step, I took a step, I took a quantum leap.
I'm just a hero in the hood.
Just a hero in the hoodie. Oh, thanks so much. That was fire. People are enjoying that. And Malcolm, we just want to thank you so much. I know you didn't have to do this for us, and you did anyway. And we want to encourage everybody to become fans like we are of Malcolm Barrett.
Thank you.
Anything else we need to know real quick about for future?
Sure. Go to amotheater.com. It'll tell you about the festival happening October 1st, or you can go to our Instagram where we've been sharing ammo stories, which are basically sort of 2-3 minute long stories from different people in Ammo Theater. I'm sort of that stuff. So I hope you guys see it on our Instagram. And then you can also follow Verbal and Icarus. And we have an Instagram, and you can go to our account and get our new album, Funhouse, which is out right now. And I'm also going to be having some sort of new song on iTunes. You can check that out. Brain Problems. And then I'm also going to have some new music, or I have a new song video that's going to be coming out pretty soon that you can look for if you follow me, Verbal the Rapper. I'm also on Twitch, I think, under Verbal.
Okay.
Wait, Malcolm has some of the best like masks.
Yes. Checking out the mug.
The best.
Lathan's there. Hi, Maggie.
Yeah.
Oh, our cousin Felicia.
Congrats, Lathan and his Emmy.
Yeah.
You and Maggie, we just want to say congratulations to your husband.
Yeah, he got that for Dave Chappelle show. So we've got one of our friends on who produced the Dave Chappelle show. We've got his beautiful wife, who's Haitian, a countryman of Claude. So countrywoman. I don't think Maggie cares, but they just came on. Maggie, don't you think that Malcolm looks a little bit like Dave? Just a little bit. I mean, when he was young, he really did. So we just wanted to make sure we had a formal goodbye. I guess we're going to have to edit it. But thank you so much, Malcolm.
Malcolm, can we get a little bit into season 2 of The Boys?
Oh, what do you want to know?
Well,
do you guys watch The Boys?
Oh, we watched it.
We watched it, but we just saw you.
And we watched the after with Aisha Tyler too. So I know, did she get to you in the DM like she was supposed to?
No, I kept trying to bait her too. I was like, "Where you at, Aisha? I'm here." No, and I actually know Aisha in passing. There's like, because she was at the last Comic-Con I was at, actually.
Oh, okay, awesome. So,
So
how do you feel about this season of The Boys versus the last season? How do you like the progression, especially with Liberty?
Storm, you talking about Starfront?
She's Liberty. She's not Storm. She's
yeah, it's really.
How would you brand her?
How'd I what?
How would you rebrand Liberty as Stormfront?
Well, I tell them all, if you guys realize, change comes just like the season. So just like Stormfront, there's true liberty in learning to change. And this is who we are. Welcome to Vaught.
She almost took my ear out.
If you guys don't watch The Boys,
check it out.
Malcolm is the genius behind all the marketing strategy that goes for everybody involved. And that was just like, I don't know. I know you, but that was just like perfect.
That's a great clip. We got.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
So
now to the producer.
Yes.
So now we're getting ready to close out properly because we're going to have to edit the two pieces together. Oh, he disappeared a little.
This is award-winning acting you guys have just seen. This is
yes.
Award-winning.
Yes.
I want to ask one more question. Your play that you wrote, just to echo.
Oh, wow. Yes.
You were. It was nominated. What was that feeling like to be nominated for that piece? And also, what made you create such a masterpiece like that? Because I'm not a writer, but to see how intricate the writing was, and also to see you perform, what was that experience like?
Going all back into stuff.
Because
back into like another hour.
Really good.
One question, because it was really brilliant. If you can do that during this COVID season, that's, you know, just something to think of.
Yeah, well, we did it once with Play Preview. They've been putting on shows, like theater shows while COVID is happening. So I'll give you this. Hopefully, I'm glad you asked this. Hopefully, it'll be like briefly inspiring, right?
Yeah.
So I wrote that play. For those who don't know, Brain Problems is a play about a guy who's diagnosed with a life-threatening brain disorder, and he deals with it by retreating into his imagination. Excuse me. So the play is inspired by my real-life best friend, one of my best friends in real life. And so the play came about in two reasons. One, I was trying to write something for my theater company. So I wrote something like really quickly, 5 to 10 pages, so that I could use a bunch of people from my theater company. But it was also me dealing with one of my best buddies who was going through this. He has something called arterial venous malformation. He actually has 3 of them, a Chiari brainstem as well. And so all of this restricts breathing in the brain, right? And so while he was going through that, I was dealing with being a friend to somebody going through that. And as an artist, the way that I deal with things is by writing stuff down or expressing through work. And so before he had his first surgery, I wrote an entire play. I think it took me about 2 months. And it was my way of dealing with it. And also speaking to the mission of our company, it was a way to speak to the underrepresented. You know, as a result of doing the play, both him and I became familiar with these groups, that deal with head traumas. There's whole communities. There's these things called spoonies, which are like people who suffer from things like lupus or APM, where they suffer from conditions that us as people can't see or normally recognize, because it's in their head and not necessarily a physical thing. And so there's huge communities that are born out of this. And so as a result of that, I got to represent for them. I got to represent for Spoonies. As a result of doing the play online, there are people who, because they're disabled, aren't able to go out to theater. So having having this subject matter of this person dealing with this sort of trauma, while simultaneously having done it on this platform that allowed access to people who were differently abled, it became a really rewarding experience and sort of met each other. So that's where Brain Problems came in, and it came from the fact that hey, Nicole Bahari's in the building, by the way.
Yeah, I just saw.
Yeah, me and Nicole, one of my first movies or one of her first movies, I think, where she was lead, and she just did Juneteenth, by the way. If you guys haven't seen it, I'm out here just pitching other people's stuff.
That's what makes you special.
Yeah,
I'm like, you got to see her episode of Black Mirror. She's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's where that play came about. It was me responding to my friend's trauma, and also to my friend who's kind of a dick. And so like that was the other exciting thing, is to write this flawed character. The character is basically a mix of me and his worst qualities and most endearing qualities. So initially I had played, there's a character, he went through a lot of things. He wouldn't remember certain things. And so he had trouble remembering, and he would get tired and all these sort of things. So all the things that was going on wrong with him as a result of his brain injuries made for tremendous, amazing theater. Do you know what I mean? Even down to me creating an imaginary friend, which I initially, which I initially played.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I initially played that, and then I wound up being the lead character instead. And then so who wound up playing the imaginary character named Malcolm, which was obviously based on me, was Brandon from Verbal and Icarus. And then later, Ahmed Best, who you guys will know who was Jar Jar Binks and now is a Jedi on his own show, on the children's show right now. So on Jedi Adventures or Jedi Knights, I can't remember the name right now, but yeah. So it's great. Ahmed Beck, yeah. So he's like. So I love working with my friends. I love people who are imaginative, and so that's where that story came about. And You know, I turned it into a pilot, and I'm developing it, and hopefully.
Oh, good. Because Maggie Lathan was saying it should be a series streaming.
Well, I've written a pilot for it, and that's as much as I can say about that. Is, you know, yeah. I mean, that's been the benefit, the double-edged sword of this whole thing, is that it's allowed me a lot of time to write, and so that's what I've been doing.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because that was something I didn't know the history behind. And you handled something as sensitive as that with such grace and compassion that I think we all left that theater having a better understanding with what you were trying to convey. It really hit the heart. And for someone who doesn't go to a lot of theater in Los Angeles, it was one of the great experiences I've had in theater. So thank you.
I appreciate that so much, and that means a lot to me, because when I went to theater school, one of the reasons I wanted to go into theater was to create theater for people like me, and for people, and to make it accessible to people who don't often go. I don't think you need a degree and a huge amount of experience to have an enjoyable time in a theater, and to relate to the characters there. So that is my hope, along with trying to give a voice to the underrepresented, is to create entertainment for those who don't often see themselves or see this genre.
We just want to see you in so many more things. Anything else happening? Any other television moves after Aretha?
Probably. I never remember anything. I think.
Well, I mean, you're a working actor, and that's a blessing. Most people can't say that.
Yeah, just keep your eye out for Aretha and The Boys, and so I'm either going to be doing Black History or Blood and Guts with dolphins and superheroes. So those are my.
Well, that's what we love. So thank you again.
Thank you.
We love you so much.
I love you guys too.
To learn a lot about you, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, much success in all the things that you're doing.
Yeah,
they're very impactful, and good work. Keep doing it, man. Just keep pressing forward.
Thank you very much, you guys. This is an awesome show. You guys are great. This concept. My cousin heard I was doing this. He was like, "Steal the show idea." I was like, "No." He's like, the title of the show is great. I was like, it's not my show. I can't just take other people's ideas. I mean, that is how Hollywood works, but I'm trying to be different.
Well, thank you so much. And
thank you.
Try to keep it
Catch me everywhere. Catch me on Twitch. Catch me on Ammo Theater. Catch me Verbal Be Rapping. It's a rap. I'm a hero. Hero in the hoodie with awards. That's who I am.
Okay, well, thanks so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.